Hello, my name is Hakon, and sometimes I am known as N64 when I do things to do with 8-bit computing, retro computing, vintage computing, 80s computing. And today I got something very interesting in the mail. I've already opened it. When I did my previous video in the N64 series, when I went through the Your Computer magazine from 1982, I did mention that the first computer magazine I ever bought was Computer and Video Games, December 1986. And of course, I threw it away at some point. And when I started buying computer magazines again, I couldn't find it. But I did save a search on eBay. And a few days ago, I mean, literally 2 days ago, I think, it showed up. Ta-da! And here it is. I bought it from eBay immediately when I saw it. This is Computer and Video Games, December 1986. And this is the cover I was mentioning in my previous video about this, where it's one of the promotional pictures from Labyrinth, the movie, which wasn't that great, but David Bowie was brilliant in it. And this is for Labyrinth, a computer game, which I haven't tried, so I can't say anything about it yet. I might try it one of these days. So this is proper childhood memory, I might say. My first ever computer magazine. If I seem a little bit excited, it's because I am excited. I do. It's nice to have this again because it's such a good memory for me to get this. It's not the best magazine I've ever read. It's got lots of stuff in it I'm not interested in, but it's nice to have in my collection because it has such a special place in my memory of buying computer magazines, and also the sort of happy Commodore 64 days of the 80s when that was the great big thing. And I did get it. I mean, I've probably mentioned this before. I did get a Commodore Amiga, and I sold my Commodore 64. But in hindsight, the only thing that is better on the Amiga is the sound and the graphics. The games themselves are generally not as good as the ones on the Commodore 64. And also, I'm not so sure about the sound either, because the Amiga sound, of course, is sampled sound a lot of the time, and whereas the Commodore 64 was a proper digital synthesizer, and that is a very different sound. And I think I might actually prefer that. And because of the sound and the graphics, developers got a bit seduced by the power of the computer, and they started making games that were showcasing the graphics and the sound rather than being good games. And also, when you have the liberty of being able to use 512K of memory as opposed to 64 on the Commodore 64, hence the name, you do start to get a bit of what they in engineering called feature creep, or bloating, I think is quite a common term as well, where you add things that you don't need because you just got the space for it. And it's when you do have the option of doing that, you also can't sort of what you do have to do when you only got a very, very limited amount of space to work with, amount of memory to work with. You really have to cut things down to the sort of important, essential functionality of a game or a program. And so it often becomes better because you have to focus more on the core functionality of it, and the core gameplay of a game. Of course, there are lots of really rubbish games on the Commodore 64, but there are also some absolutely amazing games, and even I think today many of them are better than many of the new things you get, just because they were made in such a minimalist way out of necessity. There's a similar effect in music. Oh, I'm starting to go off on a tangent now. In the 80s, in the early 80s particularly, which is still a sort of an era of music that is still played today and still sounds really good today. There was a time when you had good sound recording capabilities, but a lot of studios only had 4-track or 8-track recorders. which means if you wanted to do more than 4 or 8 tracks in a recording, you had to start overdubbing. And once you start overdubbing, sometimes you might ruin a previous take, and it's a bit tricky. So what most people did was they made sure that there was no more than 8 tracks in the recording. And this means that in a musical context, you have to really limit yourself. You have to do your bass, your guitar, your drums, your vocals, your harmonies, your keys, and that's about it. That's almost 8 tracks there already, and you get these arrangements that sound really great, and you have everything that sort of fits together really well because it has to. You can't be just layering things and trying to make it sound better. Well, like Enya was doing, of course, a little bit later. Because a few years later, it was easier to do this when you got digital recording in studios, and you basically could have unlimited tracks. And that was sort of the start of a bad thing as well, because if you don't limit yourself as an artist, it doesn't get as good anymore. I mean, you have to, if you suddenly have all the freedom in the world to do whatever you want, to do whatever music you want, to do whatever you want with whatever artistic expression you do, if you try to do everything, it won't be good. So once you have all the options available to you, you have to limit yourself. So I know lots of people today, when they work with music, they say, oh, I'll use no more than 8 tracks. I will use only this synthesizer. I will not use any others. I will only use these presets on the synthesizer, only these sounds. And I think there's been quite a bit of a longing to go back to that simpler time for many producers and musicians. And you do notice now when people make music on YouTube, for instance, a lot of it is very minimalist. It's just one person with a guitar, one person with a keyboard or a piano, and they make music that they like, and it's very simple. It's often just one take. It's not edited in any way, and it's something people respond to, I think, when things are a bit simpler. And also it brings out the essence of a song or a composition when the arrangement is simpler. Yes, I think I've gone completely off on the tangent. How did I start again? How did I start talking about that? Yes, Commodore 64 games, of course, being better than Amiga games because of the limitations. That was the point I was trying to make, and then I just started rambling on. So before I go off on any other tangents, just the whole point of this video was to say that I received now my very first computer magazine that I'm almost have hit it again now. So Computer and Video Games, December 1986, featuring David Bowie on the cover. Very nice cover, actually. This is such a beautiful design. I think it's just so well balanced as well. I will make a video soon about this magazine where I'll read through it like I did your computer and talk a little bit about the things in there, a little bit randomly and ramblingly as I do. But scripts is for that scripts are for actors and filmmakers. It's not for me. I don't do scripts. I just hit record and then I see what happens. So there you go. So I'll be back soon with that. And in the meantime, I've got some other things I'm doing as well. I'm right in the middle now of doing a series where I am playing. I'll just say that I'm playing a fighting fantasy game book. This is Return to Firetop Mountain by Ian Livingstone. So I'm doing that, and I'm also every now and again I will be doing some poetry. I recently bought the Oxford Book of Short Poems, which I got practically for free off eBay. It's got some cracking good ones in it, and I like short poems. I mean, I like writing short poems. I like reading short poems. What else am I doing? Yes, of course, in my capacity as N64, I will also play some more video games or games on the Commodore 64, and I've got my joystick right here, ready to go. This, by the way, maybe I'll make an episode about the joystick as well, because this is actually the best joystick, I think, for the Commodore 64 and the Amiga. And also I'll be doing things on the recorder. I don't have a recorder right next to me, so I can't wave one around as if that had any particular meaning to you. Just to make it more visual, I guess, rather than me just talking about it. So there you go. That's it for now, and I'm sorry about all the rambling and just going off on tangents, because this was meant to be a 1-minute video about me getting the computer magazine, and now suddenly it's a 10-minute video, or at least 10 minutes, about all other different kinds of things. But thanks for watching, and I will see you next time, or you will see me next time if you watch this show and if you watch my channel. But if you don't watch my channel, you won't see me next time, and you'll watch something else which might be more interesting or exciting. But if you do watch this channel and you do click on my next video, you'll see me again very soon. So goodbye for now, and take care.